to introduce themselves. If I could start off with Viv.
My name's Councillor Viv Ross. I'm councillor in Fortis Green Ward.
Barbara. Councillor Barbara Blake.
Hello, sorry, Councillor Barbara Blake, Seven Sisters Ward.
Kumo.
Kumo Matthews, legal advisor to the committee.
Dahlia.
Dale Barrett, licensing team leader.
And Felicity.
Felicity Foley, I'm the committee's manager. I'm clerk in the committee.
Thank you very much. Now we've got representations from Nashaba.
Yes, Nishaba Shah, licensing officer.
Is Lucy with us? Lucy Whiteman? Shafiq?
No, Chair. It looks like it's only Mr. Sygrave.
Okay, so we haven't got Kathy Graham or Andy Newman, Pat Charnock. Have we got any councillors? Councillor Julie Davis?
Not
Councillor Zena Brabazon or Councillor Sarah James?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
Just Ian?
Correct.
Welcome, Ian. Can I see you?
No, he's on the telephone, Chair.
I'm on the telephone, Chair, because of my eyesight problem. I'm afraid I'm on the phone.
Okay, okay. So we've got Robert Sutherland. I can see you. And the lady with you? Is that Elif?
Yes, it's me.
Yeah. Well, please note that this meeting is being live streamed on the council's website and will be available for public viewing. Any apologies for absence?
No, Chair.
Right. As this is a special meeting of the subcommittee under Part 4, Section B, Paragraph 17 of the Council's Constitution, no other business shall be considered at this meeting. So do any members have any declarations of interest? No. The procedure for the meeting has been emailed to all the participants by the clerk Felicity for the purposes of any members of the public watching. We will first hear from the licensing officer, and after that the objectors will present their case and the committee and the applicant will then have an opportunity to ask questions. Then the applicant will present their application and the committee and the objectors will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties then will have the opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the committee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. So can I ask Dahlia Barrett, please can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I was just I was late in saying that the police actually do send their apologies for not attending this evening, but their representation, as is enclosed in the pack, is still stands, basically.
Thank you.
Okay. Chair, so the panel have before them an application for a variation of an existing premises licence at Courtyard Jazz Bar and Restaurant at 7 Salisbury Promenade, Green Lanes, London, N8. The application is submitted by Miss Elif Bektas, and she's seeking a variation as follows. For the removal of alcohol sales from the existing licence, and for an increase in hours of late night refreshment. At 1.1 there, Chair, you have the hours that was asked for within the application submitted. But can I just ask Mr. Sutherland if he would like to inform the panel of any amendment or anything he wishes the panel to take into consideration at this point?
Thank you. I'm hoping you can hear me clearly. We're all around one laptop, and I haven't got my microphone with me, so we can hear you. In relation to the application, there's been some discussions with the police and also with the local residents, and if the committee were minded to grant the variation, the application would be amended to Mondays to Wednesdays, 2300 to 0200, and then Thursdays to Sunday, 2300 to 02:30. As part of the application, I would indicate, because of the substantial reduction in relation to the licence, that if the committee were not minded to grant those hours, then I would invite the committee to refuse the application, because otherwise it will create difficulties for the premises.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. So just to recap, Chair, obviously Mr. Sutherland has said that the amendment would be for 2 a.m. Sorry, that was Monday to Wednesday, and then Thursday to Sunday to 2:30 a.m. And of course, with alcohol sales being removed from the licence. The application has received representations against it by other persons, that's residents and ward councillors, and also by the responsible authorities. And because those have not been mediated away, there is of course the need for this hearing this evening. The responsible authorities representations can be found on page 34 and 36, and you'll note the licensing authority is offering reduced hours, or in fact that the license remains within the hours, and the police have also offered varying hours also in their representation also, Chair. You have there, Chair, within the packet of Appendix 3, a number of representations. Obviously, I know you've read them because you named out everybody from that made representation today, earlier at the start of the meeting, Chair. And again, their concern is around the lateness of the hours being applied for under this application. The premises itself is situated along a parade of retail units and with the snooker club premises above and residential nearby. The premises has an existing licence that permits alcohol sales, and the hours of this particular licence is on page 2 of the report, Chair, and you can see that it has the opening hours of the premises Monday to Sunday 11 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. and with alcohol sales, it's been on sales on the premises only and ancillary to a meal. The current planning permission allows for the premises to open until 1:30 a.m. daily. The applicants have not sought to increase their planning hours at this time. The Section 182 guidance advises at Section 1465 there are circumstances when, as a condition of a planning permission, the terminal hour has been set for the use of premises for commercial purposes. If these hours are different to the licensing hours, the applicant must observe the earlier closing time. Premises operating in breach of their planning permission would be liable to prosecution under planning law. And it's also asking for proper integration, should be assured by licensing committees where appropriate, and providing regular reports to the planning committee. Council officers are satisfied that the application for the Courtyard Jazz Bar and Restaurant has been made and advertised correctly. Chair, if I move swiftly forward, because I'm aware that you've read through the application, at licensing officer comments, again, as the panel here are well aware, there is commentary in there, both from the council's policy and also from the Section 182 guidance. It's there to assist you, and the legal officer will be able to assist and go through anything within that section later on, if need be, Chair. And in terms of the options open to the committee this evening, it is either to grant the licence subject to such conditions as are consistent with the operating schedule, or to exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licence for activities which the application relates to. The next one won't apply because obviously the applicant is asking for the alcohol side to be removed, in effect, or to reject the application if you feel there is no merit in awarding the hours being requested, Chair. And Chair, just to remind you that obviously any decision taken is stayed for 21 days, and that Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act comes into play here, as does the Human Rights in relation to licences and property, Chair. And Chair, I'll leave it if you have any questions for me.
Thank you. Councillor Ross, have you any questions of Dahlia?
Yeah, so let me get this straight. They currently have an alcohol licence until 1:30 in the morning, is that right?
So the supply of alcohol is Monday to Sunday, 11 a.m. to 1 a.m.
To 1 a.m. And what the applicant is saying is they want to reduce that so there's no alcohol sales.
They want to remove the alcohol ability completely.
And then Monday to Wednesday increase by an hour in the morning, so it's 2 o'clock, and Thursday to Sunday an hour and a half, so it's 2:30. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, that's what they're now asking for. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. That's my only question, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Blake, have you any questions?
No, Chair, I have no questions.
Have you any questions, Mr. Sutherland, of Dahlia Barrett?
None at all, Madam. Thank you.
Okay. Ian, have you any questions of Dahlia Barrett's report?
No, that was fine. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll now hear from you, Ian.
Okay. Is everybody able to hear me? Because obviously on the phone I'm not entirely sure. Can you hear me clearly, Chair?
Well, I can hear you clearly.
Right.
Everybody else is putting their thumbs up. Yes.
Right. Jolly good. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. And again, apologies that I'm not visible owing to my eyesight difficulties. I'd like to begin by just drawing the panel's attention to in greater detail to the points which Dahlia Barrett made as licensing officer, and that is the extent of the objections which have been submitted. We have two responsible authorities, that is to say the council itself and the police. We have 3 ward councillors from both sides of the road, Haringey and St Anne's. We have 2 resident associations, the LCSP and the GRA, which represents Haringey and St Anne's. We have several individual residents, and we also have the Haringey Traders Association. All of those organisations were extremely concerned about the very late hours which were initially put forward. We now understand that those hours have been brought back and that the applicants are suggesting 2 and 2:30, as has just been said. We have considered this as objectors, and although we were initially suggesting that we would support nothing later than 1:30, as we forwarded an email this morning, we are prepared to compromise as well and to suggest that hours of 2 o'clock 7 days a week would be our line in the sand. So in a sense, we're only arguing about the weekend between Thursday to Sunday, where we would like 2 o'clock to be the same as during the week. So let me begin by explaining why that is. This application obviously has to be considered on its own merits, but no application, including this one, can be seen in isolation. And the context here, of course, is Green Lanes. What we're concerned about is that there is no other similar venue open beyond 2 a.m. anywhere along this stretch of Green Lanes. And I'm including here cafes, bars, restaurants, pubs, clubs, gaming, you name it. Nothing has a license and is legally open later than 2 o'clock. Now, the reason for that is very simple, and that is that this is a heavily residential area. There are large numbers of residents who live above, adjacent to premises, behind them, opposite them, and that obviously is the case here with the Coliseum flats almost next door and residents living opposite in flats above the premises there. Once you get beyond 2 o'clock, and that really is pretty late, being honest, once you get beyond 2 o'clock, noise nuisance, antisocial behaviour, the possibilities of crime and violence, all of these things become much more of a problem late at night. Now, we're not saying this in the abstract. We're saying this because we know what has happened in Green Lanes in the past. I believe the applicants have not been in Green Lanes for very many years, I think about 5 years, according to what some of their representations are saying. Most of us who are objecting have been around a lot longer. We can remember what happened to Green Lanes when it had a late night economy. It led to all sorts of crime and violence. It led to a murder in Green Lanes. It led to a temporary police station in Green Lanes. It led to police officers patrolling with guns in Green Lanes. We've seen it. We've been there. We spent years on the Green Lane Strategy Group making sure that it should never happen again. And we're absolutely determined that Green Lanes must remain an evening and not a nighttime economy. The Council has recognised that in a number of its overall strategic policies. For example, the local plan makes that point very clearly, that Green Lanes is an evening economy and that late night premises are more suited to venues in Wood Green. We completely agree with that, and we also notice that the licensing policy itself also agrees with that, to the extent that it says that licensing decisions, wherever possible, should complement and work with existing strategic policies in the borough. And if hours later than 2 o'clock were to be granted, clearly it would clash with that policy. I welcome the fact, as indeed do all the objectors, that the drinking licence is not being applied for. However, it doesn't resolve the problem that if the premises is open after 2 o'clock, large numbers of customers could turn up who have been drinking somewhere else. And of course, the Salisbury pub, which is almost next door, immediately springs to mind. Now, just suppose that some well-oiled customers leave the Salisbury at 2 o'clock in the morning. At the moment, they've got nowhere else to go except home. If this premises is open, and think of its proximity to the pub, then they've got a perfect venue to go to. And however polite and agreeable the staff may be, asking those sort of customers, would you please keep the noise down? Would you mind not making a noise outside our restaurant? It really is a futile exercise. And it's hard to see what sort of conditions could be imposed that would actually lead to that problem being resolved. So in conclusion, and I don't want to speak at unnecessary length, in conclusion, we do feel that this is a step too far and that 2 o'clock has to be the line in the sand. As I've said, there are no other premises open this late, and although the applicants say that it's essential that they stay open later because, and I'm looking at point in their submission, paragraph 22.4, without the ability to open later the weekends, the business will be severely restricted and it will be difficult to compete, is what they say. My point is this, that after 2 o'clock, they're not actually competing with anybody because nowhere else is open. And there's a very real danger that if they are granted 2:30, then the restaurant down the road will want 2:30, and the restaurant a bit further down the road will want 3 o'clock. And you can see that we end up with a race to the bottom, and then we revert to the nighttime economy, which is the very thing we want to avoid. So although the amount of time, half an hour actually, doesn't look very much in the scheme of things, I would argue that it is absolutely critical for the well-being of Green Lanes, and actually critical in the end for the well-being of all the premises, including this one in Green Lanes. Because if we revert to where we were in the past, that will certainly harm business for all of the premises in Green Lanes. And that's why, notably, for instance, the Traders Association is actually opposed to this very late night licence as well. So all of the component elements in the local area, whether they are residents, traders or councillors, would ask the licensing committee to think very hard before they grant any hours later than 2 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. Councillor Ross, have you got your hand up? Do you wish to make any comments?
No, I haven't got my hand up. I was just scratching my chin. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, okay. No comment from you. Councillor Blake?
No questions from me, Chair.
Okay. Have you got any response at this moment? Because you'll be able to speak later on, Mr. Sutherland. Have you any response to what Ian has just said?
I've got no questions. No.
Okay, thank you very much. Right. So, if there's no further questions, can I ask you, Mr. Sutherland, to make your application?
Sorry,
Sorry.
Chair. Ms. Shah next from the Licensing Authority.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry,
Thank you, Chair.
sorry, Nashaba.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair. The licensing authority is asking for hours to remain as they currently are, but we are mindful that the amended hours are acceptable to the residents for up to 2 a.m. 7 days a week. We would therefore, as the licensing authority, support this view if the committee was minded to grant the license across the week. And I'm in agreement with what Mr. Sygrave has just stated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Mr. Sutherland. Would you like to make your statement now, please?
Thank you, Madam. I'm grateful to the councillor and also to Ms. Shah in relation to indicating that, there's a substantial degree of agreement in relation to 2 o'clock for those days when we're seeking 2 o'clock. Madam, I, on that basis, would seek to address you, I think, in relation to the Thursday to Sunday, which is probably the area of difference between ourselves and those that are objecting to the application. Madam, my instructions at this stage are that because this isn't, it's not a normal application in the sense that obviously I would like as much as I can get in relation to the application that's been put in front of you. The difficulty here is that the operator is balancing the license as it currently is, and also the application to increase the hours in relation to late night refreshment, but giving up and a substantial give up in relation to the sale of alcohol. And it's for that reason, Madam, that I'm putting to you, I suppose, the unusual proposition that if the committee are not minded to come with us in relation to the Thursdays to Sundays to 2:30, then I would invite the committee to refuse it, simply because it would cause more difficulty and more harm, we think, from a business perspective, than it would be to grant it. So that's the position in relation to this application. Now, I've set out, Madam, the statement of Elif, and you've seen what Inspector Ash is saying in relation to herself, her experience, and obviously in relation to what she's seeking to do. I won't go through that in detail. I anticipate from your comments that you've read through it. Inspector Ash is here. No doubt there will be questions for her, and I'm sure that she will be able to answer them. I will ask her just to address you after I've finished going through some of the formalities in relation to her vision and her hopes in relation to this particular premises. I note that on the papers, and I'm sure that I'm going to mispronounce it because I've been mispronouncing it all the time, but I shall try and get it right. I note on the papers it has an old name. The name of the premises has changed and will be known as Haringey Chorbadjasa. I do apologise, I got it wrong again, but it's Haringey Chorbadjasa, which I understand is focusing on the soups which they will be producing in part of the menu, and that's hence why the name will change to that. Madam, I'm looking to submit to the committee, very strangely, I'm sure, but I think quite straightly, the application has been put very honestly by Inspector Ash in relation to giving up the hours for the alcohol, in fact also giving up the hours in relation to regulated entertainment, and just focusing on the late night refreshment. I think it was Councillor Ross, I think, who quite succinctly put it. In essence, yes, we are giving up the alcohol sales in order for an additional hour on a Monday to Wednesday and an hour and a half on a Thursday to Sunday. I would submit, Madam, that that's actually in support of your licensing policy. I've read through your licensing policy, as I'm sure you have many times, and through your licensing policy, you focus on and draw attention to, obviously, the importance of the nighttime economy, but also the difficulties which are caused by the sale of alcohol and by business operators and the inconsiderate few, I think, is referred to at certain stages within the policy, and the difficulties that they cause. And you invite applicants to consider ways in which they can promote, obviously, the licensing objectives, but also promote your policy to ensure that the operation of premises do not cause crime and disorder, do promote the health and well-being of people who live within Haringey. And that is what we are seeking to do. Ms. Bektash has looked at what she's looking to do in relation to the business, and on the basis of that has said, I'm going to do something brave and gutsy, and that is to remove the authorization from the alcohol. But to make this work and make it viable, I do need additional hours. And
I'm in meeting.
Sorry, I thought I heard someone talking. I do apologize. So that's basically what she's looking to say, and what she's saying to the committee is, I will give up those hours, which and that's a permanent give. It's not a temporary offer. It's a permanent. If the committee grants the application that we've put forward, then it's a permanent removal of the authorization for alcohol, and it's a permanent removal of the regulated entertainment. So it's on that basis that she's saying, I need the balance really in that regard. I will promote the licensing objectives by doing that, but please give me the additional hour or hour and a half in relation to the weekends. And I think really what the difference between ourselves and the local residents is very much the half an hour, the additional half an hour, I think, at the weekend. There are a number of paragraphs within your policy which I'm not going to take you through, but if you're looking at Chapter 3, which 3.7, which deals with alcohol and public health, I would say that we are supporting that. The alcohol in crime and antisocial behaviour paragraphs at 3.17, 3.18, again, I would say are supported very much by this application. If you go through the policy and look at the hours section, which is at paragraph 7.8, there, of course, the committee are looking at the merits of each application, and that's something I'm going to come back to in a moment. Considering the potential for nuisance associated with style, characteristics, and activities of the business and type of business, examining any steps that might reduce the risk of nuisance. It goes on at 7.10 that it refers directly. It says that, however, although the council will treat each case on its individual merits, generally will not grant permission for licensable activities beyond 23:30 hours on Sundays to Thursdays and midnight on Fridays to Saturdays in respect of public houses situated in areas having denser residential accommodation. There's nothing else in relation to hours, and certainly what I would say in this regard is we are actually moving away from anything associated with alcohol, which of course one would associate with the public house, because we are seeking to remove it from the licence. So that, in relation to the policy, I think that goes through the policy quite extensively. The other element that I would look to focus on, obviously, is set out in Ms. Bektash's statement, and the noise management plan, which is produced at page 9 of the supplementary bundle, which goes through the noise management policy that will be adopted and will be in place in order to address issues and concerns regarding noise, potential noise. You've been addressed at length, both in the written representations and also orally tonight, in respect of what's gone on in the past. And also, I'm going to put it slightly differently, but I think the spirit of what was said is the same. The floodgates argument, that if you grant this application, then there'll be others that will come along, and others that will try and jump onto the coattails of this particular application, and committees will suddenly find that instead of having everybody finishing at 2, everything will close at 2:30 or 3 or 4 later on through the night. And I think in that regard, what I would refer you back to is your policy, and say the law, which is supportive of your policy, which basically says that you'll treat each application on its own merits, and that's what I would invite this committee to do. Now, the merits of this particular application are very, very specific. Here you have a premises which is authorised to sell alcohol through till 1 o'clock. It's able to operate through till 1:30, and it has late night refreshment. And I think what we are saying is we'll give up the alcohol, but we do need additional time. That, I think, puts this application in a very different category than anybody just coming along and saying, oh, right, well, yes, we would like just to operate a little bit later. We won't ask for alcohol any later, but we want our hours to go later. We're not doing that here. We're actually saying, look, we will give up the alcohol, which Haringey have said in their policy is a problem, and we will focus on what we believe we're good at, which is the food, providing healthy food for people in the area, for people who work in the area, and people who live in the area. In relation to the historic situation, I think you have to look at this application on its merits. I don't see that the issues where you had a 24/7 economy and the problems which flowed from that. I historically worked at a magistrates court at Highbury Corner in the 1980s and 90s, which seems like a lifetime away, and probably to many people it is. And yes, at that time, green names was a problem. I could tell you that from my experience in the court. But here we have a very different situation that's being applied for by Ms. Bektash. She is setting out that we're going to operate in a particular manner. She set that out very detailed in her statement. The focus is on the food, and I think on that basis, you're not going to get people who are going to go there to cause difficulty or cause trouble, because they will go, I believe, to other premises where they can cause that trouble, where there is the alcohol, which will fuel the problems that can be caused late at night, and that's not going to be here. So we would say that you must look at this application on its merits and treat it as such. I'm just going to ask Ms. Bektash, if I can, at this stage, just to, if there's anything additional that she wants to say as to what she's hoping to achieve through opening this premises, and hoping that she can open the premises very soon in line with how she set out in her statement. So, Ms. Bektash, over to you.
Thanks for everyone. I'm so excited. I never been in front like this before, but I'm so excited. I'm going to be a different concept of business. I'm going to be. So thanks for what he is a very good explanation of what I'm thinking. As the statement, I explained everything. I got my references, and I was in front of my shop. Everyone bypassed, my customers, the residential who lives there. I asked them, and they are happy for me to run a bit late time. And also why I decided this, because the COVID time, I was so suffering to run the business as a cafe. And And then I felt I had to do something, a big, huge step of my business to do something earning good money. And I decided there is no healthy foods in Haringey. All the restaurants are serving barbecue, kebab, this kind of things. But my cousin, I spoke to him and he said to me, I am next to you, and he's very good experience of since 9 years old. And so we decided we will do a healthy food because there is too many offices around my shop, and people are they are so complain about expensive of the restaurant's money. But we are going to give a good kind of price and healthy food, which is going to contain like rice and salad. And this portion going to be a bit cheaper. And we are going to do soup, which doesn't cost us too much, but it will give people a good, healthy living life they could take away. So I am just asking you kindly, because I'm going to give you the licenses back for the alcohol, removing it. I'm just asking you kindly, give me a bit longer hours to be able to run my business, because I'm going to have a 2 shift for the people's working. So I have to cover their money. So I have, Haringey is an expensive area, as you know, the business rates and the rents. There's a public the parking problem as well. And I am going to about 10 people give a job. So as a woman, I'm coming from refugee in this country. I had a big, huge improvement in my life. I'm a single mom. I have a girl who is 12. She's my life. And I want to show her there is a strong mommy in front of her, because I was a cafe, but right now I want to do a restaurant, but healthy food, show Haringey residential people that I can achieve it. So I'm just kindly asking to make it a bit longer for me. I know you have concerns about the safety of people. I am as well. That's why I have planning about putting safeguarding. My partner next door, barber, he's a barber. He's going to keep an eye on. I will be there, and there is a people around. And first of all, I'm going to put security guy for the night time, especially weekends. So I don't want any problem in my business. Of course, first, I don't want any business because I'm a woman. I know how to deal it. I have a good experience. I'm just asking you kindly give me this time. That's all. Thank you so much. I'm so excited as well. Sorry.
Thank you.
Madam, I've reminded, just as Ms. Bektash was finishing off there, that the police have set out a series of conditions. Again, should the committee grant the the variation to the licence as requested and amended this evening, then those conditions are agreed. In relation to the door supervisor, we have had discussions with the police, and I think they would be agreeable to only requiring the door supervisor on a Friday and Saturday. If the committee felt that the door supervisor was necessary as part of the 2:30 extension of hour, then I would ask that the door supervisor condition only be required on those occasions when the premises is able to operate through to 2:30. I don't know whether I can assist you further.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Members, Councillor Ross, do you wish to say something?
Yes, I've got a couple of quick questions. The first is on page 4 of Ms. Bektash's statement. On paragraph 12, she says, it's her first business venture, and yet some of the supporting letters have said that she's previously run a business in the local area. So I just wonder why the contradiction there.
I think, sir, that, and I'll ask Ms. Bektash to confirm that my understanding is right. She operated as an employee at the cafe restaurant for a number of years, and that's her background while she's been there for a number of years. And I think people obviously will have seen her running the place and may not have understood the difference between, obviously at that time she's running and working there as an employee, whereas now she's actually taking it on herself. But I'll ask her to confirm. So. Is that right?
Yeah, I was working as an employee before.
Yes.
It's been long years I was in Green Lanes. I used to work in there. Then I told you I had a huge step of my life and I decided to have a business. And I got it. That's why they know me. And then I ran the business by myself after I got it. But that time it was come to the pandemic time. But since I mentioned about my statement which years I took the business on my name.
Okay, thank you for that. My second question is, the objector said that half an hour doesn't seem very much, and it does seem that all we're talking about is half an hour on 4 days a week or 4 nights a week. And yet you said that would cause difficulty, and if you don't get that extra half an hour, we might as well refuse. So I wonder why half an hour is so important.
So as I've indicated, and I'm not saying this about this particular committee, sir, but there are some licensing committees, and I've appeared in front of many licensing committees across England and Wales. I've never been to Scotland, but I've never understood the law in Scotland. So that's probably just as well. But some committees may look at an application like this and may grant a short period, may grant till 1:30 or may grant till 1:45 or 2 o'clock, and not grant the full application, but still take away the alcohol sales. And the application was made in good faith by Ms. Bektash and those advising her. And what I wouldn't want to see, sir, is obviously the committee granting some of what we're asking for, but not all, but still taking away the license, because that would put her in difficulty. It would put her in a position where, in order to even have what she has at the moment, she would have to appeal, and that would be a difficult position to be in. So that is why I've couched it in the words that I have. In respect of the additional time, so I think that when they were looking at the business and looking at how viable it was, the figures that they were working on were obviously till 3 and 4 o'clock, which was the basis of the application. They've obviously been through the representations, and at this, it's not Ms. Bektash's intention to upset the local community. They will be her customers, and she'll be serving them, she hopes, going forward. So it's very much hoped that she's able to work with them, which is hence the reduction in hours. 2:30 partly came from discussions which, for other reasons, didn't reach an agreement, but discussions we'd had with the police, but were not finally agreed, and it was determined that a compromise in this matter would be 2:30 for the weekend and 2 o'clock during the week. It's my understanding that from a commercial perspective, they do think that could be the difference at this stage between something which works and something that doesn't. And it's on that basis that you know that we make this application, and we ask that you allow them 2:30 on those additional 4 evenings, and the rest of the week remains or would be extended to 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you for that. No further questions, Chair.
Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So could I just ask Ms. Bektash, when do you expect to do most of your business? Do you expect to do most of your business, you know, between 12 and 2:30, or do you expect to be busy during the day? What I can't quite understand is, I mean, you know, local residents getting up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning to come out and buy a healthy soup. If I'm going to buy a healthy soup, perhaps to eat later, I'll do it during the day and have it for the evening. So when are you expecting to do most of the business? Why is this so crucial that you have this late night opening?
Yeah, as you mentioned, rather than ordering fast food and you know, the kebabs and stuff, because the residential fed up with those kind of things. So I asked them, I get their ideas. That's why I came this point, because too many competition in Haringey, and they want me to do nighttime. Also, late shift people who is working, they want to collect their food and go or eat, because there are late shift people working, like minicab drivers or some kind of other local businesses workers. Through they pass through, they can pick up their food. Also in the morning, people can get their coffees. In the meantime, they can get their healthy soup and go back to work offices. They can later on drink this. So in my idea came through, but this late hours is good for me, because late shift people is going to come and take it who's working.
I think that, I mean, the intention would be certainly, as you've heard from what Ms. Bektash has been saying, that during the day that there would be local people and obviously business people, people working within the area would be attending. And so I think that there is a focus on what's happening during the day. I think that the concern is that that in giving up the alcohol side, that in order, as I said, to make it viable, as longer hours as can be agreed, really are helpful to them in being able to operate and to generate the income to make it viable. It's is it crucial? I think on their figures they would say yes, but it's one of those things where the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and I think the risks that are involved in relation for them in giving up the alcohol license permanently. They obviously want to limit that risk as much as they can for themselves, but believe that through the systems that we've got in place, that we can address the issues about promoting the licensing objectives, prevention of nuisance.
Sorry, I want to add something.
Sorry, go on.
Because I'm removing the alcohol from the premises, so I'm mostly taking out most of the risk that drunk people come in and they drink there. So families mostly is going to come. For example, in tradition, after the wedding, you know, families wants to come with their kids, have a food because they're hungry. So there is no alcohol, so they can bring their children, family together, so they can have a nice, healthy food. It's not too heavy. It's not going to hurt your stomach. That's why, I think I explained your question. That opportunity made my mind. I had to be a bit later because weddings finish a bit later. So family is looking to go somewhere to eat, but they can't find anywhere like this because everywhere selling alcohol. So they don't want to take their kids with themselves to there. So another option is this, why I want to remove the alcohol, mostly bring the food service in the premises.
Okay, thank you. I've got no other questions, Chair.
Can I just ask one question before I pass over to Ms. Shah? And that is, what do you actually serve with the soup? Because it's obviously just not soup itself.
Do you want to pick up?
Yeah, there's traditional food I'm bringing in Haringey. It's different. There's a special pans, and there is there is a pictures over here. How can I explain? My cousin having a good experience for this. He's next to me. We are going to do fish, vegetarian foods in the oven.
So in other words, it's not just soup.
It's mainly soup, But on the other hand, it cools homemade food in this country. Homemade foods in our traditional, they do back home, our moms. So it's an healthy option. So there is a pictures which we just added on the statement.
Okay.
Which
All
I think, Madam, are on the following.
Okay, you've answered my question. Thank you very much.
Thank
Can I move on to Ms. Shah? Have you any comment to make?
No, Chair, I don't have any comments.
Okay. Ian Sygrove?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned about the entire focus of what the applicant's representative has said is on the virtuous fact that they won't be serving alcohol. Well, yeah, that's great, but that was your decision. The council didn't ask you to do that. The licensing policy didn't ask you to do that. It's your decision as a business enterprise. But there seems to be an expectation that because you've made that decision, the licensing authority, the licensing committee, should therefore automatically grant you the longer hours that you wish as a sort of quid pro quo. That's not the way it works. You have to show that your longer hours won't actually cause crime, disorder, and public nuisance. And we are convinced, as indeed are the two responsible authorities, the council and the police, that the longer hours will cause those problems, contrary to the licensing policy. Now, whether or not you serve alcohol is actually irrelevant to that argument.
Thank you, Ian. All right, I don't think there are any more questions. I don't know if Daly has got anything to say before I move on. No?
Madam, whether to answer.
Right, so now I'm going to ask each party to sum up, please. So I think we start with Mr. Sutherland and then Ian Sygrove.
Thank you.
Madam, you want me to go first, yes?
You can sum up, please.
Madam, in summing up, I'm going to respond to that initial, to the last comment, which was that I've never been asked to give up alcohol. Then I think your councillor needs to read the policy, because the policy talks about alcohol and the problems of alcohol in this area of Haringey. Does it ask operators to give up hours? No, it doesn't. And why doesn't it? Because it probably doesn't expect operators to actually think outside of the box and come up with what I'm going to say is quite an original and unique thought. And that unique and original thought is the committee, the policy for this local authority is focusing very much on the difficulties and problems that are caused by alcohol. And therefore, this operator is proposing that one of the ways that it can assist is by removing that authorization from the license. It's unlikely, I would have thought, that it's certainly not going to be very easy for any operator who comes along to this premises in the future to get a 1 o'clock alcohol license. I think that would be very, very difficult. So it is something which, yes, is something that you need to be taking into account. To say that it's irrelevant, I think, is to misunderstand and to misstate the policy of this particular local authority. So I think it is important. I think the other things that have been set out are in relation to promoting the licensing objectives, and that, at the end of the day, is what this committee is looking at. Will this application, as it's amended and with the conditions and steps which are proposed, will it promote the licensing objectives? And we submit that yes, you take the application as a whole, that part of our operating statement, part of the things that we are putting forward that will promote the licensing objectives involve the removal of certain licensable activities. Those licensable activities being the sale of alcohol and also the provision of regulated entertainment. Both of those go. And in return, what we say is that we would like those additional hour on a Monday to Wednesday, an additional hour and a half on a Thursday to Sunday, in order to run the business in a manner which is in line with the policy of this local authority and is in line with the promotion of the licensing objectives. thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Ian? And can I just remind Mr. Sutherland and Ian and our members that the result will be provided within 5 working days of this meeting. So, Ian, would you like to now proceed, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I will be brief. I honestly don't believe whether or not the premises does a deal in terms of longer hours and no alcohol. I honestly don't believe that operating late into the night will promote the licensing objectives, the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance. We know that this area already suffers from a number of considerable problems. Drink is but one of them. There are many others in terms of rough sleeping and begging and homelessness and drug taking and dealing, all of which are the concerns of the police and the local authority in this area. It's hard to see how allowing a premises to open later than any other similar location in Green Lanes is going to prevent crime and disorder and prevent public nuisance. And I would urge the committee to think very hard about the comments which have been made by the 2 responsible authorities, the licensing authority itself, and both the police licensing officer and the local police safer neighbourhood teams and the police panel, not to mention resident associations and councillors, all of whom live here and have considerable experience of what the area is like, especially late at night. I really don't think that making the situation worse by breaking the 2 o'clock deadline, as it were, would be at all helpful. And so I would ask the licensing committee to think very hard before they grant hours of 2:30. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for attending the meeting tonight. The committee will now deliberate. And as I said, you get the result within 5 working days of this meeting. So again, thank you very much for coming here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.